Hello everyone, in today's video I'm going to review the Samsung Galaxy Tab S6 Lite tablet from the perspective of an artist. Now this video is going to be long because it's very detailed. If you want to save time, you can actually check out the text review that I have already written on my blog. The link is in the video description below. And if there are any updates to my video review, all the updates will go to the text review. Okay, I have been using this tablet intensively for the past few weeks for drawing, and overall drawing performance is actually quite smooth. However, there are some compromises. I'll talk about them later, but first let's talk about the design and build quality, the physical aspect of the tablet. Official retail price for this tablet is US $349. I bought this here in Singapore for higher price because retailers here, they like to jack up their prices. Anyway, just for comparison purposes, the Tab S6, the one with the AMOLED display and better specs, this is US $649. So the Lite version is significantly more affordable, but there are some compromises because of the processor that's used here, the Exynos 9611. So for US $349, you get the USB charging cable, the wall charger, the S Pen, no replacement nibs are included, and depending on the country you are in, there may or may not be earbuds included. Design of this tablet is very beautiful. I like the rounded corners, the thin bezels, and the build quality is very solid coming from Samsung. I don't expect anything less. There's one camera there, 8 megapixels, and another camera here at the front, 5 megapixels. This is also used for face unlock, which unfortunately does not work perfectly, so I'm actually using the pin unlock. And there is no fingerprint sensor, so it's either face unlock or the pin unlock. When you hold the tablet vertically, the power button is on the right side. These are the volume buttons, micro SD card slot, one speaker at the bottom, USB-C charging port. At the top we have another speaker, and this is the 3.5mm audio jack. Audio quality of the two-way speakers on the Lite is actually quite good. It just sounds a bit boomy. With the four-way speakers on the Tab S6, there is better clarity. The tablet is quite thin at 7mm. The Tab S6 is 5.7mm, so that's even thinner. The weight is 467 grams, and the glass surface is very reflective, and the S Pen, it's quite smooth on the surface. More on that later. This is a 10.4-inch TFT LCD display. Colors are nice, but not as vibrant, and display not as bright compared to the AMOLED display of the Tab S6. The resolution here is 2000 by 1200. That means when you are playing YouTube videos, for example, the maximum resolution of those videos will be at 1080p. Whereas on the Tab S6, the resolution is 2560 by 1600, so you can actually play 1440p videos, and the difference in sharpness is actually noticeable. So all the icons, the videos, the text on the Tab S6, they are going to be sharper. So for example, when you read text on the S6 Lite, you may notice some pixelation, but it's not really a big deal, at least for a tablet at this price point. Even though the Tab S6 Lite has lower resolution, the size for the user interface elements like the palettes, the menus, the buttons, they are about the same size as the Tab S6, which has higher resolution. So what this means is the buttons, the menus, everything is still very easy to click either with a finger or with the S Pen. Design of the included S Pen is almost cylindrical except for this flat surface here. There are some magnets beneath the surface which allows you to attach the pen to the side of the tablet. This pen is not powered by battery, so you don't have to charge it. There is one side button here, and the surface for the pen, it's a matte surface which feels really nice to hold. Sorry about the green paint that's here. I was painting with watercolor earlier. The tip is medium to soft, and even though there are no replacement tips included, you can find those tips online at pretty affordable prices. Now the S Pen supports tilt and pressure sensitivity. The tip is quite smooth on the glass surface. On a scale of 1 to 5, where 5 is very slippery, I would say this is maybe a 3.5 or 4. This is a laminated display, so this means there is no gap between the glass surface and the actual LCD beneath. So when you are writing or drawing, it really looks like the lines are appearing directly beneath the pen tip. Now the lines, you may see some jitter here, but that's actually because of my hand jitter and because the display is quite smooth, so I have a bit difficulty controlling the lines. But if you were to draw a bit faster, then the lines are going to be much smoother. Diagonal line jitter is definitely not a problem here. And the pen, it's very accurate, so the lines will always be tracking directly beneath the pen tip. Even at the edges here, it's very accurate. There's no misalignment, there is no parallax. Pay attention to the gap between the line and the pen tip as I draw at moderate speed. So there is a gap there. This is the input lag, but overall performance is quite smooth. The line catches up to the pen tip pretty quickly. The input lag here is not very different compared to the iPad, iPad Air and iPad mini. On the iPad Pro, there is also input lag if you look for it, just that the gap between the line and the pen tip is smaller and the animation of the lines appearing on display, it's much smoother. In terms of overall performance, the Tab S6 Lite, it's not as snappy compared to the Tab S6. There are a few areas where I noticed performance differences. So on the left side, that's the Lite. As I change the orientation, notice the orientation changes much faster on the Tab S6. On the Lite, it seems like there's this 1 second delay, which sometimes feels a bit irritating. Another area where I notice slight lag or delay is when it comes to web browsing. So let me try and reload this page. Oh, today it actually loaded quite fast. This is New York Times. Still loading. Anyway, web pages, they load much faster on the Tab S6. So this is loading. And when you open a lot of tabs, when you switch between the tabs, you will notice things will start to slow down. Today is actually quite alright. And if you want to turn your tablet into landscape orientation, again, notice that 1 second lag. Oh, this tablet that I have has 4 gigs of RAM, so that should be able to handle multiple tabs. The storage that I have here is 64 gigs. When it comes to browsing, it's pretty smooth. Occasionally, I see some choppiness. For some reason, the AMOLED display has a much smoother browsing experience, even though this LCD and the AMOLED both are running at 60 Hz. Let's see if you can detect any differences when it comes to scrolling on the LCD versus the AMOLED. I'm not sure if my camera can capture what I see accurately. Anyway, from what I can see with my eye, the scrolling, it's definitely smoother on the AMOLED for some reason. It's a bit choppy on the left side. And also, by the way, if you see any flickering on the Tab S6, that's due to my camera settings. My main concern when it comes to drawing on Android is the quality of apps available from the Google Play Store, and I'm happy to say that nowadays the quality of drawing apps on Android, they are getting better and better. So I don't think you are missing out if you go on Android rather than on iPad. So here are some of the apps that I use. More specifically, the ones that I highly recommend are Concepts, Infinite Painter, followed by Artflow. So Concepts and Painter, these two are fantastic. Alright, let me draw and talk about the drawing performance. So I'm going to continue with these sketches that I have been drawing for the past few days. The app that I'm using, this is Concepts, which is actually a vector drawing app. You may notice the texture, but these are actually vector lines with textures applied onto those lines. And this is my favorite app right now because I really love the lines and I love the textures. So I'm going to draw my 2-year-old kid who is taking a nap. I'm actually using a reference photo. So the drawing performance, it's very smooth, it's very fluid. There is no lag at all when it comes to drawing, but that will depend on how complex your artwork is. Let me zoom in a bit closer for you to see. So when it comes to navigating, like zooming in and out, panning around the artwork, sometimes there is the slight lag. It's not the irritating type of lag, it's just that sometimes the screen may want to redraw a bit slower than usual. So for example, when I do this, zoom in and out, sometimes you may see the rectangular edge there as the display try to redraw all the artworks that are on display. So let's draw here. Now, as mentioned earlier, the glass, it's very smooth, so it's actually quite slippery. When it comes to drawing, it will take some time to get used to the glass, drawing on the glass. But overall, I would still say it's a pretty good experience. Overall, it's a very smooth drawing experience. In the sense that the lines, they always come out just the way I expect them to. They come out exactly where I want them to. So that, to me, is a huge plus. Just that when it comes to zooming in and out, sometimes there's a slight delay. I have the Tab S6 as well, and for the Tab S6, it's more responsive, definitely. You can see the responsiveness if you put them side by side, which I'm going to show you later on. The lines do not have any jitter, so I'm drawing at the usual speed that I always draw at, and I mean these lines, they are really smooth, so I don't have any issues with jitter or diagonal lines. Alright, let me color this now. I'm using a textured brush. So as I zoom in, I can feel that slight choppiness in the zooming animation, but it's no big deal because it's not like a delay, it's just that the animation, when it comes to zooming, it's a bit choppy. And when it comes to coloring, this is very fast, very responsive. Alright, let me paint with a very huge texture brush. So sometimes with certain drawing apps, when you paint with huge textured brushes, there may be lag, but here it's still quite responsive. So no issues here with huge textured brushes. And now with Samsung allowing air command and the floating pen icon to be turned off, that really is a huge deal for me because whenever I draw with the S Pen, I always press the side button by mistake so many times, and it always calls up the air command, the shortcut. And now I can turn it off permanently, so even if I press the side button, nothing happens, so that's great. And speaking of the side button, some of the drawing apps may have used for this, some may actually allow you to customize the side button functionality, but what I found out, at least with all the drawing apps that I've tested, most of the time the side button, it's sort of useless. As mentioned earlier, the pen, it's very accurate. So all these lines that I draw, they are just exactly where I want them to be. Earlier on, I showed you the input lag. You may think it's quite significant, but the thing is I don't draw long sweeping lines all the time. So usually I draw with short strokes like this. And even with longer strokes like this, I don't really notice the input lag. The brush that I'm using, it doesn't vary in terms of thickness, but this brush actually has tilt. So if I tilt the S Pen like this, you can see I can get broader strokes. But if I hold the S Pen vertically, I get the consistent lines. To transition from the thin consistent lines to the broad strokes when the S Pen is tilted, it's not that smooth. Maybe it's because the levels of tilt sensitivity, it's not as high compared to pressure sensitivity. And speaking of pressure, let's choose a pen, a brush that can show you the pressure. Alright, this is how pressure sensitivity looks. The pressure transition, it's quite smooth. I'm able to transition from thin to thick lines very easily, and the transition is quite smooth. And now I'm trying to maintain consistent pressure to get consistent lines that do not vary in thickness, and it maintains the pressure quite well. Lastly, let's put some dots on this giraffe. I can tap on the display to create those dots. My overall drawing experience on the Samsung Tab S6 Lite, it's actually a very positive experience. I'm actually quite surprised. I was thinking that with the Exynos 9611, it may lag quite a bit, but I mean for simple line drawings like this, definitely no issues at all. I see a few stray dots here, so palm rejection definitely is not 100% effective. And the thing with all these stray dots is if you continue drawing and leave the dots there later on, they are going to affect your work and you have to go back and erase them. So yeah, I hope palm rejection could be better, but if you really want to avoid those stray strokes, you can consider wearing an artist glove. So this is the completed sketch, and now I want to show you another issue that I faced. So I'm going to save this to my Google Drive. I'm going to share it, upload it, save to drive. So I'm going to leave the file name as Tiffany01. Alright, so this is where I have an issue. Notice how much space the keyboard is taking up relative to the display. This is almost half the size. By the way, this is the Google Keyboard app that I installed. One good thing about this is I can actually minimize this because I need to click on the save button here, which was hidden earlier. So if you have the keyboard blocking the save button, you won't be able to press the save button. The alternative is to press the Android back button to make the keyboard disappear. So I'm going to save this file and open up the same file using the Tab S6. What I want to show you now is the differences when it comes to navigating around the canvas. So on the left side, that's the S6 Lite. I'm going to zoom and then let go. Take note of how fast the screen will redraw the zoom. So it redraws faster here, and from what I can see with my eye, the zooming animation, it's also smoother with the Tab S6 that's running Snapdragon something. Anyway, this particular sketch, it's not that intensive in terms of complexity and texture, so I mean, drawing something like this is still quite fluid. Another thing I want to mention is with Android, there are the 3OS navigation buttons. They used to be physical buttons, but now with full screen displays like this, you have to sort of swipe at the bottom to call up these buttons. The thing with at least this particular software is when you swipe out like this, sometimes you may introduce unwanted strokes onto your artwork. Some apps will always display the navigation bar, some apps may hide the navigation bar, so the consistency of whether or not the bar will show up, it really depends on the implementation of the app. I've been drawing on this for several hours and it doesn't feel warm, which is great. This means you can draw on this for hours without feeling uncomfortable. As for battery life, it's actually quite good. So for 100%, you can get up to maybe 8 to 9 hours of battery life, but that really depends on what you are doing on the tablet and whether or not you have auto brightness turned on. So if you are outdoors drawing, the auto brightness will brighten the display significantly, and it's of course going to drain battery life much faster. So maybe about 4 to 6 hours, but that really depends on what you're doing and the brightness of the display. Overall, battery life, it's good. Alright, to conclude, for US $349, this is a pretty decent tablet when it comes to digital drawing. I like the design, I like the build quality, the LCD display looks alright, looks good actually. You cannot compare it with an AMOLED display, of course, but that costs so much more. So at this price range, this is a pretty decent tablet for drawing. The only downside would be the processor that's used inside, which causes web browsing and scrolling and navigating around your artwork to be a bit choppy. But it's not like the irritating type of choppiness, so it's still not too bad. Let me end this by saying that I am actually quite satisfied with the drawing performance of the Tab S6 Lite. In fact, while filming this video for you guys, while drawing my daughter, I really enjoyed myself. I think that's great. Alright, if you guys have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. Bye!